stream on YouTube, but I'm not really streaming on YouTube. Wait, I am? I am? Now I am. What? Why I am streaming now? What changed? What? Uh, okay. So I am streaming on YouTube. What? Amazing. Amazing. Sorry. Yeah. Anyways, we can start this. Actually, uh, what's the next thing? Uh, yeah. I have to say that I'm live. Discord. Also, wait. How does it look in the channel? In the channel. Dior. Wow. What are we talking about? Shh. Broadcast started. Thank you so much for that piece of information. So it works. Basically, it works. I'm happy with that. Next step is what's the next step? Something like, I don't know, man. I'm going to lose shit. Yeah, no. I said before. Discord. Come here, Discord. This plus. Isn't there like, yeah, sure. Copy this. Can you not share every single thing? I just want to share. There we go. So that works. What's the next? Sorry, why am I consuming 5,000 kilobytes? I am streaming to 2 different sites. Why am I consuming no bandwidth at all? Why am I... What happened? Vertical scene. There is a vertical scene too? What? This is blowing my mind up. Anyways. Wait, what? Ah, I see. So I can close this. What's the next step? I did everything important. So this is the next one. I have to open. I have to test the audio, and I have to BRB. I am not a BRB. Don't worry about it. It's all the same thing. I just give me 1 second. I don't really regret choosing this topic. I just feel like I am not going to be mentally prepared, you know. It's something difficult, but we are here to challenge the conventions or something like that. So yeah, point is, wow, setting up. Yeah, okay, that's that. Next thing is, I shouldn't really have thought about this today. I. I don't know. Did I activate the auto landscape? The auto vertical stream or something like that? Or did I forget? Okay, I did. Okay, sorry, whoever chooses to watch that. I can't even see that myself, I think, right? Like, Wait, I activated all caps. I didn't mean to do that. Playlists? No. What? How does this thing create a vertical stream which I cannot access no matter what I do? What's up with that? How do I get there? How do I reach that? Whatever, whatever happens, it's part of the experience. So, how much time do we have left? Okay, almost 3 minutes. Give me a second. I want to get some water or something like that. No, yeah, but water. See you in 5 years. What's up? What's no wait. There we go. We are live. Wow. It works. Amazing, amazing. It didn't crash, so I am more than happy. I forgot about. Man. There is like one quote unquote issue. Basically, in YouTube, it's not the same system as. There we go. As what you have in. What is it in Twitch? It you can use that to connect to other channels, but I have to manually put mine because it's not exactly the same. hashtag or whatever at symbol than the one that I have on Twitch, so it doesn't automatically pick it up. Whatever. Point being, here we are. What's up? Good morning. We are a little bit late. Yeah, we are a little bit late. Happens, can happen. It's part of the experience. We accept such stuff. There we go. Today we have a topic. I chose something that I regret having chosen, but we have it anyways. We might as well not escape it. It's pointless to try and move away from it. Also, you can watch me move this in real time. Amazing. True, we make it very tiny. Like, that's tiny? Around that tiny. There we go. Exactly there. Okay, there we go. Amazing. And yeah, point was that yeah, we have something. I chose something. I don't even remember exactly what. I watched something or I had some contact with something and I ended up rage quitting almost from what I was doing. Related to the whole aspect of wow, this thing seems to be only this one unidimensional aspect. There is nothing else of importance to it, and it was such an ocean, such an aspect of discussion that yeah, I ended up being like, today we're going to talk about the other side of this, which is basically politics. Yeah, it's complicated. I will say, not unavoidably that it is impossible to contemplate or anything, but simply that by nature it's something difficult to actually grasp, so to speak. It's way too easy to stay on the more basic understanding of what political issues and what the whole objective of politics in itself is. So it feels a lot more complicated than what it actually is to talk about politics in a more basic way. There is something wonderful about living in so many of the societies that are the norm, that is, in a way, the whole aspect of political discussion doesn't really serve any meaningful purpose. We only do stuff related to politics in the most self-serving manner, in the most self-centered way of, yeah, are you from this place? Do you follow this? No, it's not even an ideological war or whatever. It would actually be, I can go as far as to say, it would be wonderful to have something like that happen. To have people truly immerse themselves in such things. To be informed about what you chose to speak about, basically. But more often than not, anything that is related to politics is simply, yeah, do you pertain to this ideological group or not? Without any actual event of importance occurring, because you are or not from those colors or whatever. It's politics in itself is something that I feel might be more complicated than what it truly needs to be, because it became something that the populi doesn't utilize in their daily life. We don't really, it's, yeah, normal person might not believe that they have any capacity to do anything related to politics, and just because of that it already is an incredibly different mode of utilizing anything of this very same sort interexistence, it becomes only something that you watch externally and not something that you participate in and whatnot. And that is strange, I guess. Yeah, there is a basic explanation of unavoidably the real world of nowadays might demand way more than what sometimes we are willing to actually sacrifice for the sake of anything, like unavoidably, yeah, you know what, let's pursue a political success or whatever. That's incredibly complicated to do. In the end, who will aspire for something of that sort if you have to throw away your entire life to accomplish some basic goals, but simple enough, no? But on the other hand, there is also a flavor of it's not so much of a distant practice, or much like how, for example, similar field, philosophy can only feel like a place in which hypothetical things coexist, so to speak, and nothing else possesses any importance whatsoever. While that is on one hand minimally true, on the other one, it doesn't fully make it real. There are some aspects to it that we can actually utilize in the rest of our existence. There are some aspects to it that we could even. That's surprisingly enough, yeah. You could benefit from stuff of this sort. The issue is getting to actually see the usefulness in that. And the problem comes from, you know what? We needed to have the capacity to do something of that sort, and we needed to have the capacity to sort of stop, to think in which way it works, and to try to make it in any manner actually possess an importance and whatnot. And that might not truly happen by itself. No person just one day wakes up and says, yeah, you know what, I was misjudging this thing. It might actually be something better. Yeah, something nicer than what I had in mind. Sometimes it's easier to just go for that other route of, yeah, you know what, this is perhaps something only of this sort, something only of this kind, and there is nothing else that we can do about that. That is strange. But yeah, in essence, I was saying, one of the things that prompted me to wish to talk out this to begin with anything was having heard something along the lines of, yeah, you know what, politics is meaningless and it's unnecessary in our discussion. We don't really need to worry about any kind of political idea or notion or whatever. It's everything works without any other thing in the middle affecting them. So we should get rid of politics as a general thing. It's sad to see how normalized it has become to be so unaware of things nowadays. Not because sometimes what we say could be true, but not exactly because what we are saying possesses the value of something true in itself, as that message which we are trying to convey, it coincidentally steps on something that might otherwise not at all be true. A proper example is basically, it doesn't really mean that because we can think out something like, for example, this whole concept, this whole notion of how we thought about God, how we thought about the influence of such a deity in our world, those things, we could make them look like, let's say, when we didn't have many explanations of how things came to be in older times. Now, perhaps we have at the present time, yeah, uh, a proper awareness of what is the thing that makes us that very same thing that rules the ways in which we live reality, as in more quote-unquote scientific, rational, logical method of explaining reality. But before, we had other methods of explaining it which seemed plausible enough, so they were valued as the true ones. In that very same case, you can say something like, yeah, we need to get rid of politics. And it's going to be right, but not exactly because it is in itself fully a coherent notion, a logical explanation of anything. It's different to say something like that than to actually be capable of understanding, yeah, in the modern world, the models which we follow, the things which we utilize to guide ourselves in society might as well not be benefiting us anymore. So, one of the most beneficial courses of action that we could try to take is to reorganize ourselves in more meaningful schemes and modes of organization themselves, so that we could later on then reach those greater stages of life and those far more beneficial degrees of existence, because otherwise it would be sad to remain in this lesser present one for the sake of nothing of true value actually. So we have to gain far more if we throw behind us what we have been doing and we finally go for something different, and we finally try to, while we are still alive, create something that might be a little bit more beneficial. That is something difficult in itself, so to speak, to say, you know? And once again, the basic content might seem similar. The notion of basically, despite any kind of motive that you might have, you're still proposing to remove this figure that is in power, no? Okay. That same thing happens at a much wider scale with everything that has relationship to politics. The issue is, many messages are simplified in ways in which it feels like you truly might be doing, saying, believing in something, when in reality there is no important thing behind the message that you are carrying with you, so to speak. It's to try to trace a little bit back. Politics in itself is the practice of the different arrangements of those mechanisms that we possess in societies, so that at the present day, the different groups that conform any society in itself are capable of coexisting and advancing towards different goals that the societies themselves have in mind. The issue is because we do not really understand why are we being moved to say certain things. What are we saying? It becomes possible for us to advance things that do not benefit us in any way, or even if they are not damaging, as in, okay, if it doesn't benefit me, then it damages me. Okay, no, it can land in the middle way of it truly is just wasting your time. It does nothing. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't benefit you. It does nothing. Either if you have it or you don't, your life entirely doesn't change. So, with notions of that sort, then the discussion becomes, how do I even have the capacity, if I even have the capacity, and how do I do it? How to approach anything of this sort properly? It's something wonderful, the way in which the notion of political ideas exists in the current world. It's amazing to see how normalized it is for us to not believe that it is necessary to understand with more properness what we are aspiring towards in the very same realm of politics that also applies. I do not truly need to interiorize myself with what goal I am, with which goal is it that I am pursuing, with what things I am supporting and what not. And in the end, it's the basic message still is something that is always repeated. Societies, communities, the humans at a larger scale and whatnot, all of that are uninformed. Therefore, the people deserves to learn more. The issue, while that is true, the apparent solution doesn't instantaneously appear just because you think about it once. The issue is that, okay, how do you actually do something like that? How do you actually accomplish the capacity to learn? How do you obtain something of that sort that lets you then operate in the even more in something so incredibly complex as the modern political landscape, you know? It's something. On one hand, yeah, strange, but on the other one, it does have a taste of unavoidably. It can always be a good route to begin with anything to try, and as always, start with the notions, with the basic notions. From there on, everything else becomes more understandable. On one hand, well, that is true, because it's the world in which we live has normalized so much politics in a particular way that everyone thinks that we experience only this one aspect of the political sphere. Therefore, if you try to propose, if you try to say, if you try to argue that, okay, then what if we try to go for this one route? What if we try to have this one thing exist or whatnot? You know? What if we try to believe that this might be good to actually have? What if we do something like that? Instead of just remaining in the comfortable place of, yeah, no, it's not really necessary to have anything like that. It's not really necessary to learn. Because it's such a norm, the moment in which you try to step outside of that, a second layer of influence exists of, yeah, these things you have already heard long enough before you try to do anything. that they are bad. So you shall never experience anything related to them at all. And if you do, you're gonna be going against what you already know. There is ideologies in themselves exist in all the places of life, but because politics is the one field where we exert the most control of the societal lives, in that place particularly, it occurs with far more naturality and far more recurrently that we end up finding out that, yeah, you know what? It's bad to have an interest in hearing ideas that don't align with your party, that don't align with the things that you particularly believe. So, if you are trying to learn, then the moment in which you try to understand the very basics, you're going to find out that, wow. And if I try to do that also, I already know that I have certain things that I cannot even mention that I am learning about. Like, for example, in a capitalist society, you can read, in the present world, you can read somebody like Marx. It is a possibility to do something like that. It's the most basic example. The issue is, if you say that you read Marx to another capitalist friend of yours, it can very well happen that just because the notion of what it represents to read this one author means exists in their mind, because that is present, the way in which they interact with you, be it contained in that one interaction, or even worse, from that point onwards, can ultimately change, because the preconceived notions that we possess about all of these things alter the way in which we treat others, without truly even understanding what they are talking about, and without even truly having any awareness of why they might be bringing up anything of what they are, and they are trying to say anything of any sort. Because of those things, then suddenly it happens that, yeah, unsurprisingly, it is far more difficult to actually talk about in itself, in a more basic manner, in a more honest way, about true discussions of problems, because there is no problem to solve bigger than the issue of ideologically I am opposed to you, even if I do not understand why, and you are as much as I am opposed to me, even if at the same time you don't really know why you should be opposed to me. So those things lead to different frictions in any encounter and any possible discussion to be had. Therefore, let's say, not only it is possible to have, I want to talk about politics myself, I want to understand what I'm saying, so I have to read that. I think it wouldn't be so crazy to say, and the second step is also to be capable of identifying that, yeah, sometimes I have those influences from my very own circles, the places in which I have inhabited my whole life, basically, which doesn't have to be something bad. It's not a negative thing to be told that certain ideas might be dangerous. It is something completely idiotic to go against anything that might not be in alignment with what we think, as in completely disregard the existence of those somewhat dangerous ideas and whatnot. It is true. There is a value of truth in the notion that, yeah, sadly, sometimes it's actually necessary to understand that, yeah, if we try to pay attention only to the more basic aspect of what is being said, once again, ideas possess nuance to them, but if I don't try to experience that nuance, if I don't try to grasp that nuance myself, if I don't truly try to experience anything of that sort, and I just have to keep encountering the surface level experience, then it becomes possible to say that, yeah, at a face value, some things might be dangerous, and it's better for you to avoid what's dangerous than to tell you, yeah, you know what? Go ahead and throw yourself against some incredibly dangerous thinkers. Go ahead and dedicate your own existence to reading about some particular personalities which decided to make sure that everyone understands how much of a pressing matter it is what they particularly propose, what they particularly believe needs to happen in the world and such. It is dangerous to do that. But at the same time, on the other hand, yeah, it sadly ends up also happening that, no, well, it is bad to never admit that it's necessary to do that. It's useful to have the capacity to do that, to begin with anything. It's good, actually. It's a beautiful thing to be capable of experiencing the world in that very same way, no? But in itself, then, tracing a little bit back, yeah, sadly, the first step is truly to have the capacity to see that, yeah, I want to understand, therefore, what is politics in a more real sense. So I have to do it by myself. And while doing so, I will find many instances of, okay, these different ideas, thinkers, propositions, and whatnot are bad. For example, what's the name of the book? Somebody like Machiavelli. If you're trying to understand about politics, you don't have to read him. It's not an obligatory reading that you have to go through, but it's useful to be capable of understanding tactics of manipulation and things that relate also to the ways in which societies are coerced to do certain things, and the ways in which leaders might aspire to fulfill their personal goals while they are in power. Is it necessary? No. Is it useful? Yeah. Issue is, before even getting to that place, you already have to deal with a lot of traction already existing from before about, yeah, you know what, this thing is completely useless. You shouldn't be at all trying to experience that. You shouldn't be at all trying to see what it might be, what's the point behind understanding it, or anything at all. It's not necessary for you to do that. It's not useful for you to do that. It's not something that you should worry yourself with. It's nothing. Nothing at all. So, you should live your life as if this thing had no importance whatsoever, and you should make sure that you never approach this. The desire to hide those things that, once again, what is it? They could be to some degree dangerous, so it might be easier for us to say that you shouldn't experience them at all. tend to tell you, be cautious if you approach anything of that sort. Be capable of understanding that, yeah, this thing, while to some degree interesting, still might be dangerous, even more, to actually utilize in reality. Think about it like this. The president of any country said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take inspiration from this book to rule my country in the very same way in which it is being described here. Is it going to be beneficial? Most certainly not. So it's better to completely alienate people from the possibility of reading them, or that's what's thought, than to actually give anyone a try. To actually tell people, yeah, you know what, you can see, you can try to experience that. And maybe you will find out that unavoidably some things do possess an importance, and some others can be completely ignored, no matter what. But if we truly weren't that capable of expressing those opinions and those ideas, we will be quite different. Sadly, I don't think so. But yeah, it's the second step is that basically it's I want to get out of politics. Then I have to experience those things that otherwise get described as bad too. And the question in itself is why would it be necessary to do with anything? I think I sort of assumed it was understood by default why you should try to do that. There is something wonderful about history, and that is, throughout time, many different ideologies have survived and also have perished. It's nice to understand why they have done so and why we possess the models that we do nowadays. Because sometimes you can also identify some aspects of reality that might be a little bit more influenceable according to your desires to begin with anything. Something very important to get out politics in itself is it is the field, the quote-unquote science, it is the social science by default. So politics is that field of knowledge, that area of expertise where people get to battle their different interests to be capable of pushing forward for the different goals that might allow them to influence societies in the ways in which they want. If you are capable of realizing some things out the societies in which you live, you are then capable of understanding also retroactively how you can try to do anything else that, let's say, if you ever experience, if you ever realize that your issues with this kind of behavior, with this aspect of the current life that you're living in your tiny community, let's say, is segregated to something that already existed before. The similarities are so strikingly clear that you can even take inspiration from that very same example and say, okay, you know what? I can try to do something out of that. Sadly, in a proper sense, yeah, politics is also about that. It's not just about the state policies, so to speak. It also sometimes is about the dialogue between you and me, between the coexistence of two incredibly niche factions. Between it's an extremely radical view, but yeah, sometimes it can even be about just two people, an entire political struggle. It doesn't need to contain even more participants sometimes. And the issue is that the way in which we are presented, which we are confronted with the notion of politics, makes them look like they actually are much worse, they actually are more damaging and whatnot, and that not only is, I will say, unavoidably sad, but also is harmful in many ways, because it doesn't really work in that way. It doesn't really function in that direction. So it can becomes something far more harmful than what it truly is in itself. Once again, one of the few beautiful things that have happened related to the modern day politics is the way in which it has been mythified as that thing which only a very select group of people can experience and whatnot. It isn't true at all, you know? In many ways, politics are also a lot of times about somebody wanting to instill a change in society and finding out a way in which it can come true by working hard enough on the problem. The issue is, if everyone was capable of understanding how influential the political systems in which we live are, more people would be creating far more chaos than what the systems in themselves can currently sustain. So it's easier, so to speak, to make the notion be that, yeah, nobody has to actually care about politics. Nobody has to actually want to do anything about them. If they work good, if they don't, good too, because it doesn't really matter. So, once again, that's also why I find it to some degree an annoying thing, because they get converted, they get simplified into this other version of, yeah, politics. What does it really mean to want to talk about politics? That we're going to talk about the only existing two parties in our country, the only two fronts, oppositions? No, sometimes politics can also be something entirely different from that. I can talk to you about, for example, a very present issue of, because the different corporations that exist around the world possess enough capacities to convince both parties of allowing the different things that in the end benefit them, there is a private influence capable of swaying those in the actual seats of power towards creating policies that stop benefiting me and are actually harmful to my person, but which ensure that those private sectors keep gaining as much or even more than what they did before. If I do not understand something of that sort, if I do not give myself the time to experience anything like that, I can, yeah, unavoidably only talk about the black and white discussion, while there are some other things that are available throughout the whole sphere of politics, but I need to give myself the time to do that, to reach that understanding, to see that, yeah, you know what, I can actually try to get out this. I can actually try to see if this possesses any importance. I can actually make any usage of the knowledge that I have already accumulated. I can influence the system to begin with anything. Well, once again, tracing back on what I was saying, more than anywhere else, politics is the one field in which you don't really want that many actors influencing anything, because sadly, it's better to maintain all discussions constricted, or yeah, restricted to only a handful of participants, because that is far more manageable. Basically, one of the, for example, it's when you try to understand politics, the whole aspect of the history of politics itself, it's easier for a whole country to be represented by a handful, because it's easier for that handful to discuss the actual issues than to have every single person from the country displaying the issues that they possess and projecting them outwards for everyone else to consider, while also having to take all the other issues of all the other people. It's a difficult job to have that happen, which inevitably becomes impossible once you have more than, let's be completely crazy. And let's say after 10,000 people, you already are completely incapable of handling all the opinions of the society which you created. So it becomes necessary to have only a handful of people expressing what their issues are. And in that same way, then it happens that, yeah, you find out suddenly that you actually need some stuff. You actually are required to do some things, and you actually have to put effort not only from your own self, but also have to do it in a way in which you don't alienate anything around you that might make in itself the act of trying to learn out this harmful to you or the others around you. What I sort of pronounced before. Sometimes it can happen that if I hear that you're learning out this thing, I might treat you differently to a wider scale of if I see that you are trying to take action in your hands, be it for whichever cause, I might actually completely react to your very actions in an entirely different way. And it's so easy to lose ourselves in the lower scale of only my party or your party matter, that those situations end up being forgotten. And it's something that I keep on absolutely being disgusted by. Yeah, politics is only about the entertainment. There is this old expression of bread and circus. Politics is only bread and circus for the masses. No, unavoidably, it isn't. It can. What it is right now might be not the best, but what it can be is far more amazing. The capacity to actually regulate entire countries is something amazing. The capacity to regulate groups of people already is wonderful enough. The issue is to be capable of understanding and making proper usage of that, to be capable of aiming for goals that benefit everyone instead of just me or a certain handful, as I said before. And it's faster, or it's less dangerous to do the latter than to actually try to help everyone, try to make the existence of the universal human being, so to speak. Anyone who lives in the place in which I reside better. Because that also sadly requires me to have far more patience and far more dedication, and sometimes, just like in any field, I might not really have as much dedication myself. I believe that I have it. I don't really know if I have it. I believe that I am interested in these things. I don't really know if I am until I have to keep on trying and keep on trying and keep on going and going and going. The moment in which I have spent 10 years, maybe at that point I finally realized I don't want to keep doing this. Maybe not even 10, maybe 1 year. I have already realized I hate this thing entirely, so I will abandon what I said I was doing for the actual pursuit of something that I feel benefited from. And sadly, because politics in itself is such an interesting place to be in the present day, you find many people doing things. It's not restricted only to one country. It will be incredibly dumb to say that all across the world, or in most places of the world, if you want to be generous, different people are in positions of power, but rather because they found ways to benefit themselves while also maintaining that other narrative of, yeah, we are doing this for this other cause that might be good for others, while we don't really, in reality, do something that benefits that said other, those stated rest of the world and whatnot, you know? But as I was saying, basically, yeah, it is something good to actually learn about. I despise when people say, ah, no, yeah, politics is only something bad. It's something fantastical. It's something that has to do with everything of our own existence. You know, in the end, it's impossible to escape politics in itself. As long as you live in society, you are surrounded by political things. It's even if you don't want to admit such a thing, they are still present. It's simpler, it's faster to act like they are not present than to be capable of what is it before doing anything that actually matters in accordance with them. But I don't know, I think so far I have presented enough. The implicit message is that, yeah, even then, it is possible to do stuff. Even in this current political landscape, it is possible to have a positive influence of any sort. It's meaningless to be so negative in that way. But yeah, I don't know. It's I now I remember a little bit more. I I chose something like this because I saw that I had the tag politics. And I don't really talk about politics because I don't really like to talk about what one thing. I personally don't find any joy in talking about that, yeah, black and white discussion. Is this party, is this other party, is this uh, group or this other group? I don't care about groups. I care about actual policies. I care about actual efforts, real observable changes in society itself at large. That's what matters, and sadly, neither of them can accomplish that. No party is capable of fixing anything in itself. Because sadly, once again, what I said before, one of the most wonderful aspects of politics is when I can tell you that I am doing something, my actions in themselves might be serving a completely different goal, and I don't have any reason whatsoever to inform you if that is the case or not. And if you don't realize that such a thing is happening, we are all safe of ever needing to actually do something about that. But I don't know. Point is, yeah, I guess basically almost what I started with. Go read something about politics. If you want a real understanding about it, go do it. And I personally, yeah, I don't care what you read, as long as you are capable. We aren't supposedly we're adults, no? Why not give it a proper try? Why not admit that, yeah, no, why don't it could be something dangerous? And after that, everybody claps and we can continue with our existence. You can progress towards things that might be beneficial to you. They might be somewhat difficult to understand, but they are understandable enough as long as you give yourself enough time, and that's everything that matters. It doesn't matter if you actually care about that. Even if it took you 20 years, it will be meaningful enough to do so. It's horrible to reduce reality to, yeah, you know what? Politics has some weird concepts. The current political landscape has some notions that might take you entire months of your life studying it every single day to actually understand. And that proposition somehow is bad, somehow we feel like it is negative. You have the capacity to truly get what's happening has been now represented, modified, equaled to something bad. I am pretty sure that's not the case. That's actually something beautiful, but who knows, man? I don't know. Point is, yeah, go read something. Give yourself the opportunity to read out politics. Get out. There is this a more wider area, not only about politics. But yeah, you should read the classics that you already know of if you want to start anywhere. Same with political theory, basically. Start with what you have heard being pronounced, and from there, keep on exploring, basically. But don't get satiated after the first book. There is no one manuscript, one thesis that encapsulates everything, sadly. So, I don't know, do your best. But yeah, that will be a very quick view of this, I guess. We're gonna do a second one, probably sometime in the weekend, probably, yeah. But for today, we are done. It was fantastic. But yeah, as always, thank you for everything. Have a good day, good night, good evening, good rest of your life. And yeah, good night. Oh.